So let's get started. Let's start off with, first of all, welcoming you guys all to our Voices weekly series. It's a series that was created initially with the idea of sharing real stories with real people, real life experiences. It's a way to spotlight our members. This is a brand new community, the Alopecia.Community, building brick by brick from the ground up for all that experiencing hair loss, different types of alopecia, not just alopecia areata, but androgenic and universal, and so on and so on. So we're excited about the growth of this community, and these sort of weekly events help us connect and hear back from our members and get feedback to make sure we're steering this in the right direction. What's up, Josh? Josh is joining us. So I appreciate everyone here. I want to introduce Miss Rachel Shapiro herself, aka, I always say aka Sage's mom, just because, and Mr. Shapiro is here as well. Josh, fantastic parents, have done an amazing job raising their kids. Sage is, the minute I met her, I knew she was a superstar, and that was a testament to her character, but obviously her parents had a lot of influence. And I asked Rachel to join us, and I want to talk about the struggles and the battles of parenting, because it's all sweet when you meet someone and everything is great. Oh, she has a great personality, but there's so much that happens behind closed doors that doesn't get talked about. And I want to take an opportunity to introduce Rachel and also share her experiences. So Rachel, like, she's, to me, the more I get to know her, I'm starting to realize she's a jack of all trades, not only a wonderful mom, but she's also a professional makeup artist. She has a spa. She was just added to a flag football league, which is wow, I didn't even know that. Who won the game, by the way?
It was just practice and a scrimmage.
Oh, okay.
The first game starts after the new year.
All right, nice. So Rachel, introduce yourself and tell the good folks here about your background.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here and finally able to speak and be confident in saying for the first time ever. I would say it took about a long time, but right now is the first time ever that I could say I am so excited that my daughter was chosen to have alopecia. I truly find it a superpower. A little bit about myself is I've been a makeup artist in South Florida for a little over 20 years. I've been doing weddings, and then I went to school to be an esthetician, went back to school to be a medical esthetician, worked for a plastic surgeon, and then funny enough, this is actually I went to laser hair removal school. So I went to school to be a medical esthetician, makeup artist, as well as a laser technician, and have been doing that for 20 plus years. And alopecia just came into my life about 3 years ago. My daughter Sage had her first spot, which was just in the front of her head. I treated it with a clobetasol, which was a topical steroid, put it on the area, and then it grew back. And honestly, I took myself off of every group, everything that had to do with alopecia. I was like, nope, not my story. This isn't me. That was just a fluke thing that just happened. This isn't me. Deleted it, honestly forgot about it. And then come back 3 years to where I am right now is COVID came, rocked all of our worlds, right? And that's when I noticed after my daughter got COVID, she didn't get COVID bad by any means, little fever, little cough. And then I realized I was washing her hair, and slowly I was like, oh my God, it's happening again. My worst fear. And guys, just so you guys know, I'm as real as they get. So I think that's an important thing on this Zoom, is to share our ups and downs. And slowly, within 3 to 4 months, my daughter lost all of her hair, her eyebrows, her eyelashes, everything. And now I'm here today. I did go through a really, really hard time, accepting it, mourning it, being angry about it. Why me? Why did I have a perfectly healthy little girl, and now all of a sudden this autoimmune disease took away her identity, right? But what I said to Charlie and Rob, that's not her identity at all. So something that I did for a living was making brows big, making your hair big, making your lashes big is what made my brides beautiful, right? And each time I would do 25 plus girls at this bougie breaker place in West Palm and go home, and I put my daughter to sleep and rub her eyebrow was in my hand. And it's like, wow, you can't even make my life up right now. But I'm coming to the conclusion that, listen, God only gives you what you can handle, right? And two, I'm beginning to see why he did this to me and my daughter. She's perfectly fine. She's actually like rocking it more than anybody that I've ever seen in my life. When I was thankful enough that my mom pushed me to go to the National Alopecia.Community Foundation in DC, which I did not want to go. And to be honest with you, I didn't remember it. I was in such a fog being there because there was a lot of people there with no hair, and it was a shock to me. I was like, whoa.
This is actually the first time we've met, and I was with Charlie there as well. Charlie was a speaker, but we got a chance to meet you and your mom and your daughter.
Yes, and the second I got out of the Uber from the taxi or whatever I was in, the first person that I saw was Charlie. And of course, my mom just sees a good looking big guy. She's like, ooh, what are you doing here? I'm like, Mom, he probably has alopecia. She's like, no. My daughter's like, literally sat on his lap. I'm like, can you ask his name? Like, they just were right. And then literally we must have 25 pictures with Sage and Charlie. And now there's no coincidence that if you go on the National Alopecia.Community Foundation website, it's a picture of Charlie and Sage. So that's a little bit about my story. And please, guys, ask questions. And just so you guys know, if there's any other moms on here, the reason why I'm on this Zoom is because I want moms, dads, siblings, anyone with alopecia to know that it is okay to go through this roller coaster ride, right? That we are human beings, but there's certain ways to talk about it with our kids. There's certain ways to accept it with our kids, and there's certain ways to not push things that will completely change their mindset on how they grow old with this autoimmune disease.
I got a question, Rachel. The fact that you said earlier, you alluded to that Sage is completely fine with having alopecia, but do you think, I mean, are you still struggling the fact that she has alopecia?
Of course. Every day I'm gonna be struggling, right? Because we want our kids to be normal in today's society. And unfortunately, today's society with hair, you're normal. But without hair, people constantly think for the worst case scenario. So sometimes my daughter says, Mommy, I want to wear a wig out. And the reason why she wants to wear a wig is just so no one asks her any questions. And like, I wake up every morning so proud now, but I had an incident that happened to me the other night, which I think we'll get into in a little bit, where I was just on cloud nine with her. We went to like the Z100 Jingle Ball, and we were just having the time of our lives. Me, my mom, and Sage. And I guess I'll just bring it up now. And Flo Rida was performing Low, 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 Low. And she was like, Mom, he has alopecia. And I was like, yes, he does, right? And at that very moment, they did a close-up on Sage. And I was like, oh my God, like how cool. And my 7-year-old daughter saw that they brought up a whole thing of St. Jude Hospital. And there was like 20 bald kids running like slow motion into the camera. And I like, my heart like dropped because I knew exactly at that very moment what was gonna happen. And she's like, Mom, look, all those kids have alopecia. And you know, I knew she was gonna say, you know, that, but in her 7-year-old mind, you know, when you could read your kids' minds, she was like, oh, they're sick. They don't have alopecia. And it's like, I just carried that all on my shoulders. You know, it was like, but I knew she knew. And it's like, at that moment, do I bring up to my 7-year-old daughter, the difference between someone being sick and the difference between someone being perfectly healthy and just not having hair, but it wasn't the time. But I see when you see a therapist, what's the first thing they ask you? Tell me about your childhood. And that is a story that I know Sage is going to carry on, where she's going to say, I was at a concert and I didn't want to bring it up to my mom or my Gigi because I didn't want them to be sad. But they thought at that concert that my daughter had cancer. And that's why they were doing a close-up on her and they felt bad for her. And that's why I'm here today, is like, please, like, we got to educate people. Like, we got to educate, like, this isn't the real world, right? Like, we just know too much. I know too much. Sage is a chunky, energetic, amazing little girl. And if she had cancer, I don't think I'd be bringing her to a crazy concert like that, because her immune system would be real low and she'd be going through some major stuff. And if you're going through chemo, you're on the thinner side and you look shallow, and like all those opposite things is what Sage is. So like I said, you could go from such those high to lows in like 2 minutes.
It's actually yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. It's actually on the opposite spectrum, because alopecia areata is a result of an overactive immune system, right? So it's the opposite of what chemo patients are going through. Even if anything, they have a more stronger immune system that's attacking the hair follicles, which is what's causing the hair to fall out. I just thought it was a interesting comparison because it's in the opposite spectrum.
So there's a lot to unpack here, right? And we like jumping right to it. Like, I mean, the purpose of this conversation today is to navigate parenting with a newly diagnosed or a child that already has alopecia. And in that moment, right, you obviously knew the time was not now, right? Because it's in a concert, a lot of people around. Did you wait till you got home to address it? Did you wait for the next morning? Are you waiting till she brings it up? Like, how does a mom handle that in that type of environment? And like, is it more your responsibility versus her responsibility? It's like, I know there's no right answer because every child is different, every path is different, but I'm curious to know your personal experience on how you tackle that.
So I take full advantage of that my daughter was diagnosed with this at such a young age, meaning you could get away with a lot. She's 6, just turned 7 not too long ago. And if I don't have to go down certain paths with her, I'm not going to. Meaning, I don't need to bring that up again right now, because first of all, it wasn't the time. Maybe if she asked, then I would have. But like I said, I just threw a huge lemonade stand, and I hope you guys, caught it. And we got a lot of money from the Children's Alopecia Project. And my main thing about that was just to bring awareness. And my daughter was 6 at the time, and in her head, she said, wow, by doing this lemonade stand, everybody is going to know what alopecia is. And I said, you're right, baby girl. Everyone is going to know what alopecia is. And from that lemonade stand on, she thinks the world knows what alopecia is. And like, listen, if my daughter was 12, 13, 14, 15, like a lot of other girls, they would know, no, that's not real life. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to take full advantage of her being 7 years old and doing the things that I could do with her to make her feel comfortable. So no, I didn't bring it up.
Yeah, and by the way, if you guys haven't checked that out, you can Google Sage Alopecia or like lemonade stand, and you can read about the article. It was a phenomenal event, raised a lot of money, but more importantly, create a lot of awareness. So kudos to you and your family for doing that. I wanted to ask you, like, one of the first questions I had lined up was about explaining these different environments. And like, obviously at school is different than what happens when you're at home, what happens in the after school programs versus what might happen during the summer camp. How has been your experience, and what have you learned that can be beneficial to other parents when you're having your child enter these different environments? Like, for example, like at school, I've heard of programs that are in place that school doesn't necessarily talk about, that you have the right to, whether it's, as a matter of fact, I remember you telling me something about, I forgot the code. There's certain, But yeah, the 504. Can you talk a little bit about that, and how do you transition from environment to environment when it comes to having your kid be with alopecia in these different settings?
Absolutely. So I do not work in the school system at all. I really kind of don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to try to sound like I do. No,
Go for it.
just kidding. But while Sage was diagnosed, and let's just say it started to really happen, she was just entering kindergarten, and I recommend that any mother or father grows a really close relationship with that teacher. Meaning you have a one-on-one talking basis, whether you could get their phone number, guidance counselor, principal. I mean, there's so many avenues that we could be so connected to with our, education environment. Something very important that you do before your kid, son or daughter even start school, whether it's first grade, second grade, third grade, eighth grade, you make sure an email goes out to every single parent, every single student, letting them know what alopecia is. And listen, the shorter and the easier we make it, the shorter and easier these kids will think it. Meaning, she has alopecia. Hey, do you know kids that are allergic to peanuts? Sage is allergic to her hair, or Luke is allergic to his hair, or whoever it is. Because if we don't make a big deal about it, the kids won't. And the sooner you do it and make these kids comfortable with it, your son or daughter will be comfortable with it. So going into school, all these kids knew what alopecia was, because an email went out to every single student at my daughter's school through first through fifth grade. And then also a huge thing I did is I went social with it on my Facebook, which was the hardest thing I ever had to do, because you don't want everyone knowing your shit, you like, it's like, but alopecia, you can't hide it. Like, there's lupus, there's Crohn's, there's a lot of autoimmune diseases, and I don't wish those upon anyone, because alopecia is not, it doesn't hurt, right? And that's my favorite part about it. But it hurts mentally if you don't do it correctly. And with me being in the beauty industry, this has rocked my world so much, to my friendships, my relationships, how much you see who's really there for you, right? And the way we look at people, never assume, you never know what anyone's going through. So getting a 504 plan, getting really, really, really close with the guidance counselor, making sure those kids are pulled out once a week, because we know therapy is really expensive, but you have the capability to pull out the kids with their guidance counselor. They don't need to bring it up. They don't, just pull them aside. And if the kids want to talk about it, let them talk about it. But going to the National Alopecia Areata Foundation, I found out so much from the older girls there. Like, there were so many cool girls that were 18, 17. And the main thing I took away from that was what not to do, to not force my daughter to wear a wig, to not force my daughter to wear a hat, to not force her to go be bald. You do you. You want to wear a hat today? Here's your lineup of 58 million bucket hats. And here's your lineup of 58 million wigs that, mind you, we got every single one for free. Amazing organizations out there. So if you guys want to know, please just reach out to me. I will give you names of a million of them. But also, I heard by having your daughter or your son wear a wig can hide them, right? You're showing them you got to cover up what you have. And sometimes by wearing a wig, you're creating actually more of a barrier of them to be not confident in their own skin. So the more you can do with them being confident where they're at right now, wherever their journey is, having hair, not having hair, being patchy, have them be confident in where they are right now. And that's all you got to worry about. Because I think if Sage is confident right now and she doesn't have one strand of hair, she's going to be fine for the rest of her life.
Wow, that's powerful, and that's super helpful. Like, I know with these institutes and especially in schools, there's systems in place, and it's one thing to rely on your guidance counselor or the teacher, but these kids are kids, and someone is sharing on the chat here that she had a 7-year-old daughter, Amanda. Hi, Amanda. That she had a 7-year-old daughter that's having anxiety, being in new groups, and these kids can be really mean. That's outside of your control. You can only do so much. So she mentioned how some of these mean kids were calling her daughter a boy because now she has no hair, so that all of a sudden erases her gender or how she identifies. So I'm curious to see now, when you having, I know you've experienced these issues with other kids being mean to her, and are you handling that with the school? Are you going directly to the parents? Are you just pulling the kid to the side and let me talk to you for a second?
No,
How do you handle that?
I find it so important. I think she's on this Zoom, someone extremely close to me. Her name's Laura. Remember I told you guys about her? She wrote a book, I Love You More. She's a children's author. She was the first person I ever met that had alopecia. When Sage just even had a little patch, I met her because I know too much about alopecia being in the industry. Being in laser hair removal, you learned about the stages of every follicle. And how long it takes. And I had her come to my daughter's school when she just had a patch. She read a book, and it was the most beautiful thing. And I felt so blessed that she lives right in my backyard in Fort Lauderdale. And that's a beautiful thing to do. There are so many books out there now that talk about being different. You bring those all to your classroom, to the schools. And a big thing I did with the lemonade stand is all that money we raised, I took aside and I bought books and I donated them to schools all around the world, because I think every school should have those books in their library to tell our kids what alopecia is. Because till this day, there's not one day that does not go by that someone doesn't say about a comment about Sage. And I blame that on the parents, because we can, these kids are 6, 7, you're in elementary school. I've sent numerous emails, and it's the parents' job to open those emails and to say, oh, there's a little girl that goes to X, Y, and Z school, and I want to tell Billy what alopecia is. And just by doing that, thank you. It takes 2 seconds, explain it to them, so that way they don't go up to Sage and say, I know you have alopecia, but why don't you have eyelashes? And guess what? My daughter didn't even realize she didn't have eyelashes until that little boy said something. And I was like, of course I knew that, Mom. I wanted to call her up and be like, but I didn't, because I don't want to be angry anymore. I'm done. I'm done being angry. And you know what? I volunteer a lot in my kids' school. I'm busy at work, but I make sure to make those days to go into the school. So if I see a kid looking at her and I'm like, do you have a question for her? And he's like, why doesn't she have hair? And I'm like, your mommy or daddy didn't tell you? No. You know how bad I want to call that mom and dad and say, you didn't open up your email? And I say to Billy, well, do you know how kids are allergic to peanuts? I just use this reference because it associates with these kids easily.
Yeah.
You're allergic, and you're allergic to, okay, let's go play on the playground, because you want to make it quick, easy, and let's go play. You don't need to make a whole ordeal about it. This is what it is, and that's it. And I'm big on my social media because a lot of people did not know about it and need to know about it.
Yeah, somebody needs to, what was that book, by the way? You said Laura. What was the name of the book?
She's on here. I Love You More.
That's the name of the book, I Love You More?
And so every time I tell her I love you, she's like, I love you more.
Hey, Laura, if you can hear us, please share the link to the book on the chat. That'd be amazing. It is a good idea to share these books in classroom environments, because you can make a lesson out of it and you have something great to reference. And then it becomes the norm the more you talk about it, and you don't have these sort of hidden questions like, I want to ask you, but I don't know, and how to address it. But let me ask you this. And by the way, we're going to do Q&As afterwards. But if anyone has any important question before they forget, feel free to interject here and jump in. But I wanted to ask about some of these ups and downs, going back to what you mentioned about how you were on a high in a concert and all of a sudden it brought you back down. How do you cope with that as a mom? Like, there's one thing I worry about what Sage is thinking, what she's going through, but as a mom, right? Like, what do you do to try to prioritize yourself, your own well-being, right? Because like so much gets lost into parenting. I mean, I have 2 kids. They run me crazy as a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old, Liberty and Justice. And like, just them being them is like, drives me crazy. And they're actually in Michigan right now. So I have peace of mind. I slept into like 10 p.m. today, 10 a.m. I'm sorry. So it was wonderful, but of course I miss them. But at the same time, it's like, I'm trying to like figure out my own sanity. And like for you, you try to participate, you have your jobs, you have your side hustles. How do you try to find balance between managing her pain or her struggles with your own peace of mind?
It's tough, not gonna lie, but life's tough, right? Like I told you when we first started talking, like we don't have a book on how to raise children, let alone, hey, how to raise a child that all of a sudden at 6 years old, they're gonna lose all their hair from an autoimmune disease. And now you gotta raise them and teach them that, about life with this. So first of all, I'd like to say that I went through a really, really, really hard time, like really hard time with accepting this, and having to explain it constantly is so exhausting in itself. Right when I'm having a good day, someone like at Starbucks is like, can I pay for you? My prayers are with you. Say it to me, but don't say it in front of my kid, because they're smart. They're like, all right, well, these alopecia perks, right? We talked about that at the NAF conference, and you got to take time for ourselves, right? As a mom, as a dad, and I'm just figuring that out now. It hurts me like to even put on mascara, like honestly, because my daughter doesn't have lashes, and I hate putting on mascara. Like I hate it. I even hate doing my hair. I feel so guilty going to my hair salon. I feel so guilty for doing my eyebrows. But I'm finally, Sage said something to me the other night is, Mommy, I want you to feel good about you. And it's like, oh my God, like I lost it again. And I lose it a lot, right? But we lose it in life in general. But like, if we're good with us, they're going to be good with them. And if we're okay with them having this autoimmune disease and navigating it, they're going to be okay. But if they see us get mad at a guy buying me Starbucks the other day, they're gonna be like, why is my mom or dad getting mad? I say, thank you, because actually I am going through a rough time right now. But this is called alopecia. I made cards the other day that literally says it's called alopecia, Google it. I made like 200 of them, and I was out of them within an hour. 1 hour, I was out of all of the cards.
Wait, so how you literally printed cards that said it's alopecia, Google it, and you were just giving it to anyone, or people were asking for it? Like,
no, literally, I like pick up energy really well. Doing weddings, you gotta kind of have to. I'm like, I'll do her makeup. My assistant, can you do hers? And I'll do her, but I'm not doing the mother-in-law. And so I pick up energy really easily, and I can literally know when someone is coming up to me, and I'm like, oh shit, it's about to happen. I get out the card, and they're like, and I hand it to them, and they look at me, they're like, how the hell did you know I was gonna say something? And by doing that, I'm avoiding the conversation being in front of my 7-year-old, because the more conversation she sees like that, it's not a good thing. And like, what the word I want to get out is, if you see someone different, whether it's one arm, one leg, a cleft palate, whatever it is, don't say anything at all. Give them a smile, because in the end of the day, that's all we want. That's all we want, is to treat them as normal. I don't want you to treat me for my Starbucks, thank you, but like, treat us normal. You can buy me a drink later, but I don't know. But but like normal, right? Like that's all we want. And like the biggest thing with these girls that I met in Washington was they were all so successful. They were all so outgoing. Some of them were married, some of them have children, some of them don't, some of them are huge entrepreneurs. And that was my biggest takeaway is Sage is going to be perfectly fine. She's going to be perfectly fine. Because like, for instance, my best friend's brother, I know this is like, so he lost a finger with a kite being wrapped around his finger as a little boy. So that makes him look different. He's like this, those things, but he could do everything in life, right? You could do everything. It makes him look a little different. But the main thing that I do want to talk about with you and everybody is how we got to focus on the siblings.
Yeah, I was just about to get to that too. You queued it up just perfectly, just as a good segue. And by the way, with the business cards, we did the same thing with like these T-shirts, like coming up with the concept of like, what is alopecia, so people can read it. And it's a good icebreaker to continue to educate. But the business cards is a really good idea. Somebody mentioned that in the chat. But yeah, like siblings and your other kids, like, you're putting all this attention because someone's different or someone's, going through some struggles, but then you have other kids going through other struggles and battles that any other 7-year-old or 10-year-old or 15-year-old might have. So it's like finding the balance and not trying to neglect these other kids. How do you manage that? And then how do you also educate them at the same time where they can be an ally towards your mission, like, which is, protecting your child. How does that play into role when it comes to parenting?
I didn't even realize that until late in the game, where my son, he's 9, literally speaks like a 25-year-old man. Like, he finally broke down to me one day, and that honestly was harder than anything I had to deal with Sage, was him telling me, why when you Google my name, does nothing come up? Because when you Google Sage Shapiro, a shitload of stuff comes up now, and that's cool, right? But why not when you Google my son, does nothing come up? And he said to me, Mommy, I just feel like I live in Sage's shadow, and my heart and I was like, oh my God, like, that's the worst, that's the last thing I want. And if you really do a lot of research, unfortunately, the kids that mostly have problems, and this is not just alopecia, any diagnosis with a child being different, their siblings have the most problems. Their siblings are the ones that go through, unfortunately, really, really serious drug addictions, serious attempting suicide, serious, because they lived their lives constantly trying to stick up for their brother or their sister, or just living, with them always having the attention, because we feel like we have to give that to them because they look different. So my son and my husband just went away and did a father and son trip. And I make sure I take that special time at night to put him to bed, because he's still a baby, right? He's only 9, and it's confusing to him. It's confusing to him. He's seen my mother-in-law go through cancer, and he's seen her not have hair. And he wonders, if I'm lying to him, is Sage sick? And these are real life things that we're gonna have to go through, and it sucks. But, I just want him to know that I'm not lying to him, that Sage is perfectly healthy. And like, that's my biggest struggle throughout this whole thing, is that I'm done with people thinking that she's sick. Because like in the Jewish language, it's called a kanahara, like evil eye. Like, don't give me that evil eye, because she's fine. But by you asking me, is she okay? That's what's like, it's just so hard. But giving that special attention, especially even to my husband, how to be a good wife, how to be a good mom, I'd be a good best friend. Like my best friend like saw me. I didn't get out of my bed for a long time. You know, I was diagnosed with something crazy because I was on a really heavy medication, you know, because I was so depressed. And that made things even worse for me because I've never been on medication before. And you know, that made me have something actually called motor retardation, which is a real thing, where I forgot, you know, how to do the simplest tasks. I couldn't even go food shopping. I couldn't, because I was on such a heavy medication to make me be okay, but was making me, you know, really, really struggle actually. And finally, it took me a long time, and I'm off of everything right now and just doing self-work, trying to go back to yoga, trying to do my hair, trying to do me. But the best thing that's healing me is what I'm doing right now, guys, is, you know, educating and being a part of this alopecia community is helping me heal and accepting what Sage has. And, you know, and right now there's a new TikTok that came out that I shared with Rob. I got 35 text messages for the new medication, the FDA approved drug that's out. 35 texts of people sending me this new TikTok of this girl that's 19 years old growing her hair back. And it's like, wow, why are they sending me that? Like, are they helping me? Are they saying you should go on this medication? Or, you know,
by the way, the video is the girl, like she takes a picture or video of her saying, hey, this is me 1 week later. This is me 2 weeks later. This is me 3 weeks later. And she shows like a 2-month collage of the videos, but her hair is actually going back. But you're saying with people sending it to you, like, what are they trying to help you? But then it's like, how do you accept that help? Because maybe you're perfectly fine the way she is because she's perfectly healthy, but to someone's eyes, she's not perfectly healthy. So now you're trying to battle these two distinct perspectives that you may have towards your own daughter versus what a friend may have that's generally trying to help, but maybe also causing destruction because you have two different views.
Let me say something too, Rachel. Do you want to see Sage with hair?
I don't know what I want to see. I honestly, so she's very into theater, and she was just in the Elf, which happens to be my husband's favorite movie. She actually said something funny to me. She goes, can I be in the Elf even though I'm not Christmas? I'm like, yeah, you could be in the Elf and you're not Christmas. That was funny. But she wore a wig because that was her character. Literally the whole show, I couldn't find her. I'm like, where's Sage? Like, I didn't. So like right now, if you were to ask me right now, I'd say no, because I think truly this is her journey and she rocks it. So no, I don't know. I don't want her hair to come back right now. But when I ask her as a 7-year-old, she has mixed emotions about it. Some days she does and some days she doesn't. All of her hair, all of her friends in school the other day wore braids with colors in them. You know, they do it intertwined. And her teacher did call me and say she was in the bathroom. And I know why she was in the bathroom. That day, yes, I did want her to have her hair back. But if you were to ask me right now, I'd say no. So honestly, that's a good question, Charlie. Every day my mind changes. But honestly, it's not about what I want. It's about what she wants.
I'm gonna find the link for the TikTok too to share. I mean, we all know it, as especially as parents, like especially when you're raising multiple children, it can be rewarding, but it's very much challenging, and trying to find the balance. Like I know for me, what's been helping me lately has been practicing daily meditation. I take about 15 minutes, even sometimes 5 minutes if I'm having a short day, but having set priorities, setting boundaries, creating a routine could be really helpful, and not being afraid to ask for help. And I'm glad you're here sharing your story, because it does help other parents have a relatable connection. Like, this is human life. There are ups and downs, and it's okay not to be perfect. It's okay to not have a normal, quote unquote, normal life. But the most important thing is that you're trying your best and that you're working to maximize the amount of time you have in your day to make sure your family's well, while also making sure you're well. And that's super important. Like we have about 15 minutes left, and I wanted to open it up for Q&A. Does anyone have any questions that they want to ask Rachel, now that we're a big kumbaya family and we've gotten emotional, you've cried, but if you want to unmute, everyone's on mute right now, but if you want to unmute and ask a question, please feel free.
Please ask away. Like I'm literally such an open book right now, because that's the only, like I said, this is what is so important for us. And what's helped me the most is connecting to other moms that are in the same position as me and Sarah and Amanda. I see they're on here. Like that's literally what helped me so much, is to not feel alone. Silence.
I'm gonna put the Jeopardy song.
I have a question. I'll ask. And this is actually for the people on here that have alopecia. I would just love advice on what your parents did right and wrong. You know, I mean, this is completely new for my family. No one else has it. So I would just love advice on what we should do and say and what we should not do and say.
I can take this one. See, for me, my mom was struggling with the fact that I was dealing with alopecia, because as parents, you know, I'm a parent myself. We want to be in control of our kids in the sense of, you know, alopecia is something that we can't control what was happening to them. But so with my mom, I would see her cry a lot. And this is one of the things that I would say that she did wrong, but it was right because I was able to catch it. Meaning, like, she would always cry in front of me and I would see that. So that, and so that made me feel like, okay, I can't show her that I'm struggling with it. I have to be strong. So I will put this mask on, like everything is okay, everything is jolly, everything is perfect, but then I will go struggle by myself in the corner. You know, I would not open up to her because I didn't want her to struggle. So was that a good thing? Yes, because it made me overcome it quick. But was it a bad thing? Because now I'm sheltered. I'm trying to manage and navigate this by myself. And as having alopecia, doing this by yourself, it's 10 times harder. It's so much harder because I feel like this is an autoimmune disease where you need support. You need support and you have to lean on somebody. And at that time, I didn't have nobody to lean to, but I'm also grateful for that because I was able to, the lucky ones, to kind of overcome that and kind of use that as fuel. But not so many as lucky as, you know, as privileged, you know, to do or to go down that route. So the good thing to do is, I say, just give them support. Just give them support, hold their hand and walk with them during this journey. And maybe refrain from showing emotion in front of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like what Rachel was saying too. Like, hey, when somebody's looking to help, don't ask me this in front of my child. Don't buy me the coffee because you feel sorry for me in front of my child, because they pick up on these things. That's great for sharing. Tam had a question. She has her hands up, and then Laura afterwards.
Hey everybody, I actually did not have a question. I also wanted to chime in on the response to that. And the thing that was most helpful for me that my parents did was they got me counseling and therapy, because similar to the woman whose video I found on TikTok, that her daughter recently started to lose all of her hair. I think it was around Thanksgiving. She was like, you know, I don't know what to do. My daughter won't talk to me. My parents had to find someone for me to talk to. And so to this day, you know, I'm 42 years old now. But that was like one of the best things that my parents could have ever done for me, was to get me a counselor, a therapist to speak with. And then, you know, like Charlie was saying, you know, my parents definitely My parents hid their emotion from me. So I never knew that they were having a struggle. So Rachel, to hear your story is really enlightening for me, because it kind of sheds some light on what maybe my mom and my dad were going through when I was younger and having alopecia, that they just never chose to.
How old were you?
I was 6 when I was diagnosed. So they never chose to share that information with me. It wasn't until much later when they started to tell me, the stories, but they also gave me the choice to, decide how I wanted to move with introducing alopecia to everybody. But to answer the person's question, I couldn't see who was speaking. I was trying to find your name, but therapy, very, very helpful. Very helpful.
Yeah, and they're actually now, because of technology, there's tons of apps that, there's Modern Health. There's you can Google mental health apps. Some of them are free, some of them, the paid ones, you'll get more value out of it. But you can actually set up weekly or monthly sessions, just right through a similar Zoom call like this. Sometimes it's always great to be in person, but like if you can't, and you're trying to balance your time between parenting and all, you can squeeze in some time using mobile apps. Laura also had a question. I want to make sure I get to her.
Kind of like Tam, I was gonna chime in on what I think it was Stephanie might have asked, and but I want to say hi to Rachel, and I love that Amy's here. I have alopecia, obviously, and I lost my hair when I was 11. I think what Rachel has done, one of the many things that Rachel's done so right, is to make sure that she's got a good support system. Other moms with alopecia, children with alopecia going through it, but also her friends, that her friends know what's going on and are there for her, and that her friends' children understand and they're having conversations about it, so that it's not, so they understand what it is. That's the biggest thing that I feel like when I do my school programs. It's just like everybody knows what it is and what it isn't, and then people can be okay with it. But I think with my parents, and when I was young, to respond to that question that was asked was, my mother took me for so many diagnoses and finally got the diagnosis of alopecia at Boston Children's Hospital. And the doctor specifically told my mother, there's nothing we can do, get her a wig and nobody needs to know. And my mother knew that was terrible advice, but we went along with it. And so for so many years, I felt like there was something wrong with me. And because I felt like there was something wrong with me, and I was wearing this wig and it was terrible, it was made for an old lady, it didn't stay on. It was too big for me. And I just felt like there was something wrong with me. And so I made all these decisions like, I'm never going to be able to have friends or do the things that I wanted to do. And it wasn't until slowly that I realized that I was learning lessons about love and compassion and empathy that I never trade for my hair. And then all of a sudden, after I had the idea for my first book, decided that I'd stop wearing wigs, and then just like embraced being myself, and saw the power and freedom that comes from when we don't think there's something wrong with us, then the world doesn't show up like there's something wrong with us. So now people offer to buy me a coffee every once in a while or something, and I'll just say, thank you. I think it's really key, like Rachel shared, to have something you can say to people, like, great, to hand them a card. Or to say, it's kind of like, she's allergic to her hair, but even get it so that your child can say that, like, I'm 1 in a million, I don't have cancer, I have alopecia, just so that they can be as comfortable and as confident with who they are, and that it's, that they're okay. And the more okay that they are with themselves, the more that's what people reflect back to them. And it's challenging when we're kids, and it's not just the parents, or it's not just the children, because we want children to stop bullying, but when we look at social media and how the world and we treat one another, it would be impossible for us to expect our children to not bully or ask questions, given the way that we treat one another. So, but there's like an awesome opportunity to, have our children choose kindness, because they're probably the ones that have the better chance of leading the way with that. So it's all over the place, but I think that's life. You're going to experience a lot of different things, and you've got to be able to go with, how you feel that day and what life presents to you. Rachel, I love you.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. I did want to have, let me see how we're doing on time. We got 5 minutes. Does anyone have any other questions they want to squeeze in? Because I have like 3 more questions in my head, but I want to give other people opportunity. People seem to think like I talk a lot. So please, if you want to exercise those 5 minutes, we got time for more questions. All right, so here comes my question. Going back to the siblings thing. I'm curious to learn more. I'm gonna put the spotlight back on you, Rachel. Have you done anything different in these last like 60, 90 days, last couple of months? She was diagnosed back earlier in March, right? So in these last like 3 to 4 months, have you done anything different to prioritize the attention that's lacking from your other kids? Like, are you putting them more like into like signing them up to different programs, buying them more gifts, letting them eat more donuts? Like, has anything shifted in the way you parent your other children?
So throughout this whole journey, something that changed tremendously, I'm gonna get emotional again, was my marriage, because, I lost, the importance of my rock, who was Josh, because I was like so focused on Sage, right? That we went away recently on a family vacation, just us 4. And like that trip changed my life, even though I got so sick from Mexico. Do not drink the water there. But I actually proposed to my husband there. We renewed our vows, and that was a struggle that my son was going through. He's like, what's wrong with you and daddy, and through doing that, like my son was my husband's best man.
Oh.
And Sage actually said something to me a couple years ago. I always wanted to be a flower girl, but I can't be a flower girl because I don't have hair. And I was like, oh, she's gonna be a flower girl. So Braden was the best man, Sage was the flower girl, and I tricked my whole family. I was like, we're doing a family photo shoot. And they all went down, and there was a minister right there, and we got married. And like, it was the best thing I did for my family, because it was like, they all needed to see like, we're all in this together. It's all gonna be all right. And like, yeah, of course, like, listen, I've been buying a little more gifts for my kids, right? But like I said, those aren't the important things in life. Those are materialistic things. Those could go away like that. Like when we wake up in the morning and we take a breath and we realize we're not in pain, we are healthy, and like enjoy life every day is the most important thing I can show my family and my kids. And also something I was doing that I really advise parents that are newly diagnosed, I hid Sage for a while. Like during the process of her being alopecia areata, which is more patchy, I hid her. Like we didn't do much, like, because I didn't want anyone to see the process. And finally, once she lost all of her hair, I was like, oh, thank you. Like no more of that process of washing it and it falling out and going through, that process. So like exposing her, she's playing flag football, she's on a soccer team, she's in dance, she's in voice, because I don't know what her journey is going to be, but I want her to be comfortable in anything. I also just took her to a barber shop for the first time with my son. And like, that was the hardest thing ever. Like sitting with a bunch of dudes getting their head shaved and like their beard trimmed, like any experience that I could do with Sage for the first time as her mom, I'm going to do, because like, she's going to have to do that one day. But like, if I could do that with her for the first time, whatever it is, those awkward moments of alopecia, awkward moments, I'm going to try to do those as much as I can with her. And her she shaved Josh's head. I was like, shave mine. She's like, no, you look like an idiot. I'm like, okay, thanks. But truly just, and I'm proud of it now. And right when I became proud of it, she did too.
Amen. I was going to ask you for some closing words, but you killed it with that. I thank you. This is a wrap. I can't express enough my thanks and gratitude towards Rachel and the rest of you for joining. Charlie and I and the rest of the team have been committed. I don't know if you guys saw, but last night we had our debut on CNBC. Charlie and I were actually on Money Court with Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank. and we were talking about a project that we're working on called the Alopecians, just because of some of the same reasons, things you talked about, having more resources, more representation in our children's books, in action figures, in comic books. We're working on an animated series. So just to see everything coming to light, it really does take a village, and as somebody mentioned in the chat, how we are stronger together. So I appreciate you guys all. Charlie, you have any final words you want to share?
No, more of a comment with Rachel. Rachel, thank you for taking the time and being with us today, sharing your story. And you're the true definition of strength, because you've been through some shit, and being strong enough and to say that I'm going through some things, it's amazing, because not a lot of people will share their struggles. So I commend you for that. So you're the true definition of strength. So I appreciate you for that.
Yeah, and for every other mom or dad that may be going through the same struggles, like I said earlier, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be ups and downs. Rachel's a living proof of it. But that's why it's important to communicate and to have these support groups. We want to have these weeklies. If you guys have any ideas, if you want to speak yourself, hit us up through the chat on the Alopecia.Community platform. Yeah, happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you all. Thank you.
Happy holidays, happy new year, and thank you guys all for taking the time to do this and make this a part of our alopecia community. I look so much forward to many more amazing Zooms. Happy and healthy new year. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa.
Wait, Rachel, how can they find you?
My handle is @Rachel'sBrides on my Instagram, and then Sage has one that's called Sage_Wisdom11. And then basically, but I think a lot of people on here pretty much know how to get in contact with me. I'm an open book. If you guys have any questions, please DM me on anything. I'm all about our community and making each other all in this together.
Amen. All right, y'all take care. God bless, and good night.
Thank you for the opportunity, Rob and Charlie.